Good morning, friends, and welcome. It's Tuesday, January 3rd, and you are listening to The Goalmouth, a podcast collaboration between Dirty Tackle, Howler Magazine, and The Total Soccer Show. I'm Taylor Rockwell, filling in for Daryl Grove, who filled in for Taylor Rockwell when Taylor Rockwell was in California. And have I got great news for you. Netflix added over 60 shows and movies on New Year's Day. Included in that update, amongst dross like Boogie Nights and The Shining, is a cinematic masterpiece that deserves all of our attention. It's Being Zlatan. That's right, the documentary that follows, quote, the iconic soccer star through his rocky early years and his 2005 breakthrough, end quote, is now available for your viewing pleasure. So go ahead and pause this episode, watch the whole thing, and then come back. I'll be waiting. On today's menu of bite-sized soccer news, Joey Barton is wagering his future on the Premier League. Paul Merson reminds us all why the January transfer window is the domain of the fool. Gedion Zelalem is definitely, probably, maybe moving to Dortmund. Swansea City get a new boss, and something is rotten in the state of Trinidad and Tobago. Up first, Joey Barton has re-signed for Burnley following a disastrous spell in the Scottish Premier League with Rangers. Barton was named in the Championship Team of the Year in 2015-2016 as he helped Burnley regain promotion to England's top flight. However, he then opted to sign for Rangers in May 2016, much to the chagrin of the Burnley-based tabloid press. He departed with kind words, stating, quote, I was presented with an opportunity and challenge the competitive animal in me just could not turn down. Onwards and upwards now, end quote. I don't know about you, but I don't really define onwards and upwards as playing only 5 SPL matches, getting into a training ground dispute with a teammate, falling out with my manager, and then getting investigated by the English FA for allegedly placing 1,260 bets on football matches or competitions between the 26th of March 2006 and the 13th of May in 2016. He had less fun in Scotland than the English in Braveheart, and that's saying something. Barton got off to a flying start in his return to the Clarets. Just kidding. He actually had to serve a one-match ban as a result of a carryover suspension passed down by the Scottish FA relating to a previous offence. But he'll be back for Burnley's FA Cup match this weekend, and I, for one, am thrilled. While performing talking head duties on Sky Sports, former England international / current uninformed bloviator Paul Merson reminded us all once again that the press doesn't necessarily know what it's talking about. Discussing the current situation with Dimitri Payet at West Ham, Merson proposed the logical scenario, according to his reality, in which reality isn't all that important. His solution, quote, sell Payet for 30 million and buy Martial for 20, end quote. When reminded that Anthony Martial had cost Manchester United 36 million, Merson was quick to point out that, quote, well, you could probably get him for 30, end quote. All this makes me think that it's time for Merson to retire from soccer and start a game show in which contestants have to guess what random items, including footballers, cost according to Paul Merson. A container of milk, 40 pounds. Leo Messi, $70 bajillion. Wayne Rooney, probably 20 bucks. With that Merson story in mind, I think it's a good time to remember that the January transfer window tends to lend itself to insane stories that almost certainly won't come to fruition, so treat what you hear with a grain of salt, or just outright ignore the rumors. Anyway, transfer news now. ESPN reports that Arsenal youngster and United States under-23 international Gedion Zelalem is wanted by Borussia Dortmund. I do love how, when it comes to the transfer rumor mill, the tenuous becomes the smoking gun. For example, as noted in that ESPN article, quote, the midfielder is well known to Dortmund, having represented Germany at youth level before switching his international allegiances to the United States, and he could become a teammate of U.S. international Christian Pulisic at BVB, end quote. Why a handful of appearances for a youth national team 4 years ago would make a player well known to a club isn't actually clear, but you do get the feeling that the writer was like, there's another American there, and the editor responded, stop digging, you've struck gold. Regardless, fellow goalmouther Daryl has his own thoughts on the matter, theorizing that Dortmund might see Zelalem as a successor to Julian Weigl when that midfielder departs in the summer. So Daryl gets the credit if that turns out to be true, and probably deserves some condescending tweets if he's proven wrong. Sound good? Great. One man who appears to be swapping Germany for England, or more appropriately according to reports, Wales, is Paul, usually the bridesmaid, Clement, who is likely to be named Swansea's third manager of the 2016-2017 campaign. The 44-year-old Englishman has worked as an assistant manager under Carlo Ancelotti at Chelsea, PSG, Real Madrid, and most recently, Bayern Munich. Clement's only experience as the top dog came when he managed Derby County for 8 months, amassing a record of 14 wins, 12 draws, and 7 losses. According to The Guardian, Clement will sign a 2.5-year contract, which can also be converted into 10.73 Bob Bradleys. I'm guessing Clement will last longer than the 85 days that Bradley endured, but heaven help him if he calls a pitch a field or a penalty a PK. And finally, things aren't going too well for the Trinidad and Tobago national team. Following a disappointing run of form, the Trinidad Federation axed former manager Stephen Hunt in favor of Belgian coach Tom Sanfit, who had completed a 6-month gig with the Bangladesh national team earlier in 2016. Now it seems the players aren't too impressed with the present situation. The Trinidad Daily Express is reporting that Seattle defender Jovan Jones was left out of the most recent squad after he failed to report to camp on January 1st. In Jones's defense, the idea of doing anything early on New Year's Day, particularly something like showing up for an athletic training camp, strikes me as wildly unappealing. In addition, I'm not sure someone can be left out of the squad by a manager if they decide not to show up. At that point, the player has pretty much made that decision already. However, Jones isn't the only player who finds himself in Sanfit's bad column. Defender Daniel Cyrus and midfielder Jamal Williams were sent packing after they reportedly arrived 90 minutes late to camp with a, quote, decent smell of alcohol on them, end quote. So it looks like some of the players may have enjoyed celebrating the death of 2016, even if that might mean the temporary death of their national team careers. That's it for today's Goalmouth. You can explore all these stories in more depth by subscribing to our newsletter. The link is in the show notes. If you're inclined to be an especially wonderful listener, you can subscribe to the Goalmouth in iTunes, tell a friend about the program, or leave us a review. I've been Taylor Rockwell. George Qureshi will be with you tomorrow, but until then, I'll leave you with today's Goalmouth top tip. Paul Merson should not be your financial planner.